During the height of Dragon Ball Z's popularity in the US, a growing need was beginning to show itself. While the anime satiated some of this need, it wasn't enough. Fans wanted more. We wanted something more tangible, something to display, something to play with. Then one company stepped in to fill the emptiness in our minds and on our shelves. Westen Toys, a Canadian toy company whose most major success came from licensing pre-existing toys like Etch-a-Sketch and Spawn, then marketing them to the Canadian audience. But around 1999 to 2000, the company saw an opportunity. They saw the success of Dragon Ball Z on Toonami and acquired the license to make toys based on the anime. At first they started small, reusing molds from the original Bandai product line. But eventually they branched away from it and decided to create their own figures, and Westen saw a great deal of success with its Dragon Ball Z line, releasing several waves and even playsets. Eventually they decided they wanted to achieve higher levels of accuracy with their figures, which led to Westen making 3 figures: Goku, Vegeta, and Super Saiyan 2 Gohan. These figures were bigger than the usual 5-inch figures that Westen had been manufacturing. These were 9-inch, non-articulated, and dubbed collector's editions, and while they may look great in comparison to what Westen had been releasing up to this point, by no means are they great representations of Dragon Ball characters, and that leads me to why I'm making this video. When Western toy companies decide they want to make figures or statues based on Japanese properties, they always seem to have this uncanny valley quality to them. They vaguely resemble the characters they are meant to. And it seems like Westen was acutely aware of this, because a year later, they tried again, this time through a collaboration with Funimation dubbed If Labs. These figures maintained the scale of the previously released collector's edition, but added some articulation to the figures as well as much more detailed sculpts. These looked a great deal better than the series before, and If Labs didn't just limit themselves to Dragon Ball. This time it sought to release figures based off of other Funimation properties such as Dragon Ball and even Yu Yu Hakusho. Again, Westen saw massive success with this line and released multiple waves. However, one thing remained the same. These figures still truly didn't capture the essence of these popular anime. Not long after, Westen Toys would lose the license to Dragon Ball Z and Jakks Pacific would pick it up, and Jakks would restart the formula all over again, releasing various waves of 5-inch figures that looked okay, but never great. But just like Westen, Jakks saw the need for figures aimed at the collector's base. Again, utilizing a collaboration with Funimation, the two companies would form Giant Ape, an obvious reference to Dragon Ball, and continue the highly detailed movie collection line that If Labs had begun. They even re-released some of the original sculpts made by If Labs, just with some rebranded packaging. However, the new Giant Ape figures again failed to completely do justice to these iconic characters. Now, while it may sound like I dislike these figures, I want to be transparent. I actually have a good deal of these figures produced by the aforementioned companies. Why? 2 reasons. Reason number 1. I'm a huge Dragon Ball fan who longed for more accuracy and higher quality figures. And 2, I wasn't aware of any alternative. Keep in mind that these figures were being released from the late 90s to the early 2000s. The internet wasn't as prevalent as it is now, and I just didn't know that Japan was producing the higher quality figures I was craving. So I continued to buy what was readily available to me. This doesn't just stop at Dragon Ball either. In the years following Dragon Ball Z's success in the US, more prominent toy companies would dip their toes in figures based off anime properties. Mattel slagged the licenses for Yu-Gi-Oh!, Shaman King, One Piece, and Naruto. They even had a line of Naruto figures aimed at collectors dubbed Premium Sculpts, which I admit looks surprisingly good considering. However, the other lines didn't fare quite as well in my opinion. Well, except for Shaman King, whose generally simplistic art style allowed for Mattel to make some pretty fun figures. And while I still collected a lot of these figures, I knew they really just didn't meet the levels of accuracy that I was craving. However, in 2009, when Dragon Ball Kai began airing on TV, Bandai started releasing new waves of brand new figures, and it wasn't long before they started to make their way to the US via importers, and my eyes were open. There was a clear delineation of how the Japanese toy designers designed anime properties versus how Western toy designers did. I've never been able to come up with a definitive reason why the discrepancy was so wide, but I do have a few theories. In Japan, people who go on to be sculptors and toy designers have grown up with manga and anime as a primary source of entertainment. In many interviews with Japanese sculptors who design anime-based figures, there's a certain level of reverence for the characters, a desire to preserve the core of who these characters are, and something even more critical, they want to honor the original creator, the mangaka. When Western toy designers tackle anime properties, they most likely don't have the same level of reverence, or they don't think the original creator will ever lay eyes on their work, so they may not feel the same desire to capture the essence of the character. But more likely than not, I think it comes down to the fact that Western toy designers didn't grow up with these characters as their superheroes. They don't understand the art style, and they don't hold them in the same regard as their Japanese counterparts. Western toy design in general is just different than it is in Japan. Most Western action figures are yoked up characters like G.I. Joe, He-Man, Captain America, the Hulk, Thor. These are muscle-bound Adonises, meant to portray the idealized version of the all-American man. When those design sensibilities are applied to an Eastern art style, the offspring that results are the aforementioned movie collection series from If Labs and Giant Ape. Now, for the most part, I've moved away from purchasing anime figures and toys produced by Western toy manufacturers because it's become so much easier to purchase the Japanese figures. Bandai now has Bluefin, an American Armed Force distribution, which means collectors aren't at the whim of importers and we can buy anime-based figures from almost any retailer, and we no longer need to accommodate room in our shelves for the lesser quality Western-made figures. However, this doesn't mean Western companies have stopped producing toys based on manga and anime properties, ones whose names are synonymous with quality and attention to detail. Recently, McFarlane Toys secured the license to produce figures and statues based on My Hero Academia. Now, McFarlane Toys has had an amazing track record producing figures and statues for Spawn and The Walking Dead at the highest level, using facial scan technology to more accurately capture the small details of the actors who portray these characters on TV and film. So when they showed off the first prototype for the My Hero Academia line, I was pretty impressed. These were a far cry from the figures that had come before, and I thought, for once a Western company gives a shit. And then the final production figures came out, and I realized that both of my theories are just plain wrong. Western toy companies give zero fucks about anime fans. If they cared, the final production figure would have matched the prototype, right? Well, a few weeks ago, I was pre-ordering some My Hero Academia figures from Big Bad Toy Store when I saw a Deku figure that caught my eye. It looked pretty great. Now, I've bought a lot of My Hero Academia figures, especially Deku figures, and Bandai has done a superb job in capturing Deku in a number of great poses and keeping up with the updates to his superhero costume. And while they all may have differences based on the sculpture, the figures always resemble Deku to a very large degree. I was interested in this figure, however, so I clicked the link, and lo and behold, it was not made by Bandai. It was made by McFarlane Toys for a brand new line of deluxe figures specifically for collectors. Okay, here's a new opportunity for McFarlane Toys to do right by the fans, but after the last time, I just don't trust them, so I ignored it. A few days ago at my local Books A Million, however, I happened to see a Deku figure that caught my eye, and there it was, the deluxe 12-inch Deku by McFarlane Toys, and it looked pretty damn good, so I picked it up alongside some newly released My Hero Academia figures from Bandai. Looking at this new McFarlane Deku figure, I realized what it is. It's an attempt to do what Irwin and Jax were doing with their collaborations with Funimation and the formation of If Labs and Giant Ape. And while those companies never reached the level of accuracy that fans may have wanted and desired, what they did do was show fans that we should expect more. And Bandai knows this. For the last 10 years, they have been running a competition called BWFC, or Ban Presto World Figure Coliseum, and it's open to international contestants. These artists are major fans of anime, and they have designed some incredible figures. It's actually unfortunate that they are not working for any Western toy developers that have secured the licenses to produce figures based off of anime property. Over the last 20 years, anime has become more pervasive in Western culture, and it's only a matter of time before passionate Western sculptors and toy designers make their mark. It hasn't happened yet, but I do believe that day is coming, and when it does, I hope to add those figures to my collection. But that's it for me. That's today's video. Before I let you go, I gotta ask you guys the following. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe and hit that bell icon so that you can get notified whenever a new video drops. Please hit that thumbs up if you like the video, and shit, if you don't like it, go ahead, give it a thumbs down. As always, please leave a comment so that we can have a discussion on today's topic. Until next time, guys, I'm out.